Do you meditate? Do you meditate?
Yes.
Sometimes? Have you ever seen a movie where the rocket ship is breaking through the atmosphere and the G-force is so strong that you can see the tension on the faces of the bodies that you're watching moving through space? Their eyes look like they're going to bulge out and their head looks like it's going to explode, and you can tell that they can hardly stand it, and then all of a sudden they break through, and then the relief of that tension is no longer there. That's what meditating is like. No, not quite. Not quite, but it's sort of kind of like that. Sort of kind of like that, because your goal is to quiet your mind. But when you first start to quiet your mind isn't quieted. So you have a sort of internal battle going on, because you want to quiet your mind, but it isn't. You want to quiet your mind, but it isn't. You want to quiet your mind, and it isn't. And you're so focused on quieting your mind, you can't. And so we say, listen to the air conditioner. It's so beautifully boring. You have no judgment about it. I've heard better. You don't feel that way. So you just let your mind relax. And at first there's a tension. There's a tension, isn't there? You know what we're talking about? We're talking about the tension of releasing resistance, which is easily accomplished by releasing thought. But there's a tension in releasing thought because you've trained your minds to focus. And your mind doesn't want to really release thought. Your mind wants to focus on something. And the law of attraction is going to cause your mind to focus on the most active thought, which in most cases, we love you so much, is resistant in nature to some degree. So when you meditate, you got to focus on something and let that tension be there because it's natural, but just keep focusing until you break through the atmosphere. You will. And when you do, sweet relief will come over you. That's a state of non-resistance. And when you do that, we're talking about 15 or 20 minutes to get there. When you do that, now everything in your vortex you are allowing, but we don't want you to think about it. We want you to just sit in that relief, in that release, in that absence of resistance, and know, but don't know it so much that you're thinking. Just know that what's in your vortex is now calling you, and there's no resistance in you. So you're going. And as you go, now a thought will occur to you, an impulse will occur to you. And when it comes, think about that. But we're talking about what Esther is writing as she writes her segment of intention, as she's going to meditate. She's begun writing something like this. Not the same words every time, but the same intention. I'm going to sit for 20 minutes or so. I'm going to turn off my phone and sit in a place where there will not be interruptions. The universe has such good timing. And I'm going to quiet my mind. I'm going to quiet my mind by focusing on this sound. Sometimes it's a sound in her house. The refrigerator makes a really nice sound, the condenser. The air conditioner makes a really nice sound, but sometimes it turns on and off. So she has an app on her phone. It's the most spiritual app in the whole world. It's called Central Air. It's just this nice, steady, sort of atmospheric buzz that she focuses on. Her statement of intention is, I'm going to focus on this sound of silence, so to speak, this sound, and I'm going to allow my vibration to rise. And then this is the key word that she has just discovered recently, and this is everything that we're leading up to with you. And then I'm going to watch the movie if it happens. I'm going to watch the movie if it happens. Not, I'm going to create a movie. Not, I'm going to take this issue and I'm going to work it over good. because that's a reintroduction of the resistance she is talking about letting go of. I'm just going to watch the movie. I'm going to watch the non-resistant movie that my inner being has queued up for me. So I have one singular intention, and that is to release any resistance that I have. Okay, now that made perfect sense to you, didn't it? Your meditations are going to be so much more pleasurable from now on. Pleasurable and therefore powerful, but pleasurable is what we're going for. But therefore more powerful, but pleasurable is what we're going for. Because if you go for the power of it, you're going to try to create within it. If you go for the pleasure of it, you'll chill. You'll allow it to be. So you got that, didn't you? Now what we're saying to you is that's the same stance that we want you to now be relative to everything that you want, because you've done the work. You have sifted through the data. You've done step 1. Source has gathered the cooperative components. Step 2 is done. Now your work relative to this subject is to let it be. Let it come to you. Don't try to direct it. That makes you focus in the same way that we were giving the example of. It makes you activate vibrations that are in your way. You are so close, not to this end result, to this never-ending pattern and path of results. You're not ever going to get it done. You're not ever going to get to the end, but you're going to have so much pleasure as the universe says, here you go. And you say, I see that. And then the universe says, here you go. And you say, I see that. The words that are coming from Esther these days are, I am bowled over by my now awareness of the cooperative universe that is acting on my behalf. She said it's like problem solution, problem solution, problem solution, problem solution, or question answer, question answer, question answer, question answer. And if the question and the answer are really close together, or the problem or the solution are so close together, then you have that feeling of your hands in the clay, but you don't mess it up by focusing upon a problem when you're not close enough to the solution to let it in. Is that helpful?
Yes. And yeah.
What'd you get from that?
Chill out.
Yeah. So we're going to ask you a series of questions. Do you acknowledge that that's not your nature?
Yes.
Do you acknowledge that you are a powerful thinker and that you have long been making things happen with your thought? That by your sheer will and powerful intent that you stand out in the crowd because you're more focused than almost anybody you know?
Yes.
Will you admit that it's been pretty tense for as long as you can remember?
Yes.
And are you now getting it, that tension, while you've earned it, and it is admirable in a physical environment where the harder you try and the more you sacrifice and the more effort you make, the more you're rewarded from the puny little pile, that there's not steady, continuous bliss and satisfaction and ease and flow and a feeling of worthiness and blessedness in that. You're ready for flipping that switch. You really are. And sometimes you do it. But there is a tension about you that we would just put under the big label of, I can make this happen. And we want to say to you, to all of you, you've already made it happen. Now you want to let it in. But when you say, I can make this happen, then you're still trying to make it happen, which means you're not ready to let it in, which means everything that's queued up for you can't get in because you're still trying to make it happen. And when you're making it happen, you're still considering the contrast. Well, you can launch rockets all day, every day, and there is a certain satisfaction in that. But compared to getting in this flow of divine intervention, divine cooperation, where all that is, who knows everything that you desire and all of the reasons behind it, and where every piece of satisfaction is. Did you notice? Every piece of satisfaction, not every piece of the puzzle that'll move it along, every piece of satisfaction. So our question is, can you accept, we know it feels like we're sort of bullying you into this, but it's because we feel it's so powerful. Can you accept that? Your Honor, Abraham is leading the witness. Can you accept that the feeling of satisfaction and the accomplishment of the powerful state of being that you want are the same thing. But with emphasis on the pleasure, you can be there now. And with emphasis on the power, you hold it off. Can you feel the difference? When you say, I'm going to tune in and I'm going to take this alignment and then I'm going to accomplish this, you point right at the problem that needs to be overcome. But when you are looking for the pleasure of it, now you've just broken through the atmosphere. Now you're feeling the release of it. And now you're letting the universe have its way with you, which requires trust that you're worthy, and trust that your inner being knows what you want, and trust that the cooperative components have been gathered, and trust that you're going to like it as you move along. Yeah.
So then, this is a time in history where it's not enough to know. There's a time in history to know how. Because information is so readily available, you can gain information. You don't need an authority. You don't need a priest. You don't need a teacher. You don't need a governor. You can gain information without passing through some type of authority. And so people are empowered. And the next most practical question is, how am I going to apply this to my life? Now, when you learn new things, you make new connections in your brain. That's what learning is. But if you can't remember what you learned, then you haven't made any new connections that are sustainable or maintainable. So the more the person can repeat what they've learned, the more they're installing the neurological hardware in their brain in preparation for the experience. And so now they're priming their brain for the act, right? And when the experience happens, experience then enriches the circuitry in your brain. That's what experience does. So now you're laying down even more neurological tracks, but the payoff is the chemical called the emotion. And the moment you feel unlimited, the moment you feel grateful, the moment you feel abundant, now you're teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind is intellectually understood. So knowledge is for the mind and experience is for the body. And now we're embodying the truth of that philosophy. And we're literally signaling new genes in new ways and changing our future, or changing our genetic future. And if you've done it once, then you're an athlete, you'd be able to do it over and over again. And if you keep repeating it, you neurochemically condition your mind and body to begin to work as one. And the redundancy of the act over and over again conditions the body to know how to do it better than the mind. Now it's innate in you. It's second nature. It's easy. It's familiar. It's who you are. And so I think we start as philosophers. We initiate, we become initiates, and then we master it. Knowledge, experience, wisdom, mind, body, soul. Learning it with your head, applying it with your hands, knowing it by heart. Thinking to doing to being. And so I think to answer that kind of question or that comment is that, we should get up as if our prayers are already answered. The problem is that our senses fool us into separation. The person says, I want to be healed, I want to be healthy, I want to be wealthy. And they imagine it and they come back and it's not there. And when they see it, it's not there. The thought of their future creates the emotion of lack or separation. And if thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, now you have mind and body in opposition. So then, if you think about something like appreciation or thankfulness or gratitude, when you are receiving something, when you just receive something, when something is happening to you in the moment, or something just happened to you that you enjoy, or you're surprised about, or is pleasing to you, you feel this emotion of gratitude. So gratitude becomes the signature, the emotional signature that it's already happened. Gratitude is the ultimate state of receiving. So now when the person combines a clear intention of their future, and they open their heart and they feel the emotion of that future, their body is objective. It's the unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between the actual experience in their life that's creating the emotion and the emotion that they're fabricating by thought alone. In that moment, their body is believing it's in that future, in the present moment. And the stronger the emotion they feel, the more altered they feel inside of them, the more they pay attention to the picture in their mind. And we could say then that they're beginning to remember their future. And biologically, it's the same as remembering your past. So if you keep practicing opening your heart and you keep combining it with a clear intention, then the thought and the feeling changes your state of being, which means then if you keep doing that over time, you'll feel like your future has already happened. Now, what's the significance of that? If you feel like your future has already happened, you stop looking for it. You're no longer waiting and wondering when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. You feel like it's already happened. So now you take your foot off the gas, and you're no longer trying to predict or control or expect how it's going to happen. You're connected emotionally to your future. Well, the antithesis is also true. The stronger the emotion you feel for some betrayal, some shock, some trauma, the more altered you feel inside of you, the more you narrow your focus on the outer environment, and the brain takes a snapshot, and that's called a memory. And so the stronger the emotion, the more the brain embosses the imagery neurologically in the brain. So then the person thinks neurologically within the circuitry of that experience, and they feel within the boundaries of those emotions. So then we could say then the person's biology is literally in the past. So you can't create a new future if your state of being is in the past. So people reaffirm their identity this way. They wake up in the morning and they say, let me think about my problems. And those problems are memories of past experiences that are etched in their brain. So they think about the person, the place, the object, the experience. And we could say then, if they believe that their thoughts have something to do with their destiny, they're thinking in the past. And every one of those problems has an emotion associated. So now they feel unhappy. Now they feel fear. Now they feel unworthy.
And they might be addicted to those feelings.
Oh, no. It's a conditioning process, because conditioning, all you need is an image. They've mastered this on television. An image or a brand and an emotion. And all you need is a stimulus and a response. So every time the person remembers their future, or their past, as they remember their past, the image with the emotion is literally subconsciously conditioning their brain and body into the past. And so if they're living in the familiar past, guess what? They're going to predict the next future. They're going to want to be able to predict their future. So because that's the known. So that there's only one place where the unknown exists, and that's the present moment. And teaching people how to get into the generous present moment takes an act of awareness. And most people would rather turn on their TV or, get on their cell phone. And this is actually, Aubrey, not a bad thing. This is actually a moment of awareness.
Yeah.
And, when you're inside the jar, you can't see the label. And so we have this huge frontal lobe that gives us self-awareness. So then the insight never changes anything. You could have the insight that you're addicted to fear, you're addicted to competition, you're addicted to struggle. But that really means is that we're addressing reality matter to matter. And what we're at one point of awareness, one point of consciousness, and we're putting our attention on another point of consciousness, a future, an outcome. And the only way we know how to get there, when we're matter trying to change matter, is that we force, we control, we predict, we fight for it. Because that's how you are when you're living in survival. So then we have to move our bodies through space, and that takes time. So we think if we rush, that we're actually going to get there faster. But more and more of the rushing creates more of the addiction of those emotions, because the adrenaline that's released is actually an arousal. So a person is using the conditions, the problems, the situations in their life to reaffirm their addiction to some emotion. To me, that means we become addicted to the life we don't even like. And so that's why change is so hard. So then let's offer another alternative. Well, when you begin to create from the field instead of from matter, the only way you can do that is you have to learn how to take all of your attention off your body and become a nobody. Take all of your attention off all the people in your life that you give so much of your attention and energy to because you have an emotion associated with them. And get beyond all the people in your life and go from a someone to a no one. Mm-hmm. Now, if you've worked your whole life being a someone, or if you've been working your whole life thinking that you're your body, you're going to have to work a little harder because that's your identity. Sure. That's what you're associated with. Get beyond all the things in your life, your cell phone, your computer, your car, and literally go from something to nothing. You have to take all your attention off the place you work, the place you live, the place you need to be, the place you're sitting, and go from somewhere to nowhere. You got to stop thinking about the predictable future and the familiar past and go right into the present moment and go from some time to no time. And if you do that properly, you become pure consciousness. And that's how you enter the field. Now, we've done the research on this. We call it getting beyond the self. Now, once you are pure consciousness, you're taking all of your attention off this three-dimensional reality. Now, where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So if you've taken all of your attention off of everything material, there's only one place you're going to wind up, and that is the immaterial realm called the quantum field, an invisible field of energy that unifies and connects everything material. So now when you're creating from the field and you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, and you're connected and you feel connected, the suggestion of an alternative way to create is that when there's a vibrational match between your energy and some future reality, you actually no longer have to go anywhere to get it. You're actually the vortex, and you will collapse space and time and draw the experience to you. Now that, to me, is a lot more fun, because the experience is the unknown. You can't predict when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen, because if you can predict it, it's the known. So then you have to lay down the very thing you use your whole life to get what you want for something greater to occur.